When did we do the tour?
I was freezing outside, so. So you're finding it warm in here compared to out there?
Got it right there.
Employers that don't pay wages, public works contracts.
Already? Oh, I didn't realize this.
Buenas tardes, ¿cómo están, señores?
Work people out of their position.
No, what we rearranged. Oh, that is great. That will be me.
Oh, I don't know. ¿Qué organización?
And there's her. Oh, there you go.
No, Joseph's 18,
Excited
so,
about that.
but Celine is 24, so.
Sure. Oh, it's up there.
But it's not in so much trouble. It's like,
So I was asking if I can't change things.
What are you doing up front?
It's all out. It's like,
Seems like something that's going to be fairly simple. There's a lot of it. It's pretty common sense. You know what I mean? You know?
it is, but I will tell you, you know what makes
They know they're
we
doing
changed
something.
the configuration.
They know they're doing something. They don't do that just inadvertent or accidental. You know what I mean?
and what makes it difficult is
Yeah, barely. My eyes are real many.
Whenever that will happen.
it's that process of really working towards
That used, I know Winston used
That
to
is a
always
little
sit up
different
here.
situation.
We should do a tour one day after session.
He was in this corner. He was always in that corner.
Tour, you know.
No, they shouldn't be in the middle. It's not theirs.
real lawyers in the area.
How's it going?
We're a team. We're a team.
They need to
It's not
be.
theirs.
I don't understand exactly the law versus the common sense part, you know.
Yeah. So these are like civil rights attorneys.
Now you'll get to see it.
But
Good.
it's a,
Well, that'll be
it's
interesting
like
for
any
you.
kind of public system, underfunded.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. I know. Well, that's good. All righty. We got everybody here. Almost. Candy's not here.
I don't know if Candy's going to.
She may not be making it, yeah.
I know she hurt her.
Yeah, I know. Brenda, is Candy on the phone maybe?
Yes, I'm here.
Ah, there you are.
Hey.
Thank you, Candy. Well, I'd like to call to order the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, February 6th. And we have an interpreter here with us, Sergio. So give us a message.
Thank you, Dr. Piercy. Good afternoon. I'm your interpreter tonight for English and Spanish. If anybody needs some help, please raise your hand. I have the headsets. Buenas tardes, señoras y señores. Yo soy su intérprete para inglés y español. Si necesitan ayuda, con todo gusto, aquí tengo los audífonos. Por favor, me avisan cualquier cosa. A su servicio. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio. And we could please stand for a presentation by the Color Guard by Manzano High School, Navy GROTC, under the instruction of Commander Bino, and our Pledge of Allegiance.
Color guard. Hope. Order. Colors. Ready. Cut. Kite. Pace. Present. Colors. Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro fidelidad de los Estados Unidos y a la República de Venezuela, una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Order. Colors. Ready. Cut. Kite. Pace. Forward. Colors. Forward. March. Color guard. Hope. Order. Colors. Ready. Cut. Pace. Color guard. Dismiss. Aye, sir.
Thank you. You may be seated. Could I have a roll call, please?
Peggy Mila Aragon.
Here.
Barbara Peterson.
Here.
Candelaria Patterson.
Here, on the phone.
Elizabeth Armijo.
Here.
Lorenzo Garcia.
Here.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Present.
Dr. David Piercy.
Here. I'll have a motion for adoption of the February 6th Board of Education agenda and the approval of the December 19th and January 16th Board of Education meeting minutes.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you. We'll go on to recognition of students, staff, and community. Board Member Montoya Cordova.
Welcome to tonight's board meeting, and thank you for coming. We would like to recognize the Color Guard from Manzano High School, Navy JROTC, under the instruction of Commander Beno, or I hope that's how you say his name, Commander Beno, B-E-N-O. So would the instructor and the students please come to the podium and introduce themselves?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alyssa Anaya. I am a sophomore at Manzano High School, and I plan to attend the Naval Academy when I graduate.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Dion Vo, a junior at Manzano High School, and I plan to join the Navy after high school.
Hello, everyone. I am Richard Keever. I am a sophomore at high school, Manzano High School, and I plan on going to trade school.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cody Schell. I'm a junior at Manzano High School, and I plan to enlist in the Marines.
Good evening. I'm Mike Benno. I'm a retired Navy commander. I grew up down in Socorro, graduated in 1984, went off to the Naval Academy, did 22 years on active duty, and I've been at Manzano High School since graduation, or since my retirement, I'll say, in 2010. You have four very solid members of Manzano High School right here in front of you, and I want to brag on not only them, but we've got 6 other very solid members of Manzano High School that just landed in Birmingham Airport about an hour ago. They are there to compete in the Navy JROTC National Air Rifle Championship. Third-ranked team going into this, and we're going to try to be first by the end of the weekend. So we appreciate the support of all the programs here in Albuquerque in junior ROTC and everything that gets done to support our students. Thank you.
Thank you. So would you please come up? So our next recognition will be introduced by Dr. Chris Muir, Executive Director, Student, Family, and Community Supports Division.
Thank you. President Piercy, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy, members of the community. Tonight we have the honor of recognizing an exceptional counselor. Kendra Moulton is the counselor at E.G. Ross Elementary School. She has developed a unique college and career climate in her school. Now, this is an elementary school, keep in mind, and they're already doing college and career stuff there. She does job fairs. She has college days where she encourages the entire staff to wear college shirts and talk about their college experiences. Kendra may not know this, but I have heard her called the counseling whisperer. Her calming demeanor with students almost always ensures a positive outcome with those students. Kendra Moulton, we don't just think she's wonderful, but recently was named the 2019 School Counselor of the Year by the New Mexico School Counselors Association. The American School Counselors Association School Counselor of the Year program honors a professional who devotes their career to serving as advocates for the nation's students, helping them achieve success in school and in life. That's Kendra. Honorees for this esteemed award were selected based on several criteria, including school counseling innovations, effective school counseling programs, leadership and advocacy skills, and contributions to student advancement. Ms. Moulton, would you please join me at the podium?
Okay.
Would the family and friends and colleagues of Ms. Moulton please stand to be recognized? Kendra, thank you so much for your contribution and what you do for our students. We really appreciate you. Please join me again in thanking her for all of that she's done.
Our next recognition this evening will be introduced by Dr. Antonio Gonzalez, Associate Superintendent for Leadership and Learning in Zone 2.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy. Tonight we have the high honor of recognizing Ms. Perez and Ms. Torres, who were recently named Spirit of New Mexico Award winners. The Spirit of New Mexico Awards were started in 2009 as a way to remind the community of the good news that surrounds us every day. This year, we have 2 APS recipients as honorees. Ms. Perez, a school nurse, and Ms. Torres, a classroom teacher, were honored with the award for their continuous and successful efforts to get help for a young student and her siblings whom they believe were in danger at home. Their persistence not only saved the children from a horrible and abusive situation, but forced the system responsible for reporting and handling child abuse reports to make serious and much-needed changes. Ms. Torres and Ms. Perez, would you please join me at the podium? Would the family and friends of Ms. Perez and Ms. Torres please stand so that we may also greet and honor you? Thank you for never giving up on your students and for your care and for passionately doing the work in our schools every day. You are examples to all of us. Let us show our appreciation to Ms. Perez and Ms. Torres.
That's so cool.
Our next recognition this evening will be introduced by Board Member Lorenzo Garcia.
Well, good evening, everyone. Tonight we have the honor of recognizing an outstanding community partner. Ms. Stephanie Yara, is the parent representative on the audit committee. Recently, she resigned due to work obligations. And I have to say that Ms. Yara's participation as a committee member was exceptional. These are early morning meetings for those of you that don't know when we meet. And they're often long and sometimes challenging and boring. But Ms. Yara's keen attention to details, her understanding of the audit process, and thoughtful interactions have helped us as APS meet the various challenges that we've faced throughout her tenure. Ms. Yara, would you please come to the podium? So I think there's one person here. With the family and friends of a small gift, token of appreciation for your service, I want to thank you so much for sharing freely of your time and your expertise. It's made an incredible difference to us, to me in particular, and you will be missed.
Thank you so much.
We're going to miss you. Really appreciate
Okay, our last recognition this evening will be introduced by Shannon Barnhill, Executive Director of the APS Education Foundation.
Thank you, Board President Piercy, board members, Superintendent Reedy, and members of the community. It is with great honor to present to you a loyal and devoted corporate donor whose service to this community is not a commitment, it's their culture. This donor is deeply invested in the community they serve. Wells Fargo is committed to investing in our children's education. We are extremely proud of our partnership with Wells Fargo. They have enabled the foundation to increase support to students through foundation's grant programs by funding amazing, innovative projects and providing new experiences and creating an outstanding learning environment. Their support of the foundation and the district has spanned over 7 years, and just in the past 3 years, they have contributed over $153,000. They have been a silver sponsor for the Gold Bar Gala the past 2 years, and we're pleased that they have committed to supporting this again this year. Wells Fargo plays a very special role in the continued success of our students and our teachers, and this year they have awarded a grant of $15,000 to support and fund APS student-led business and finance ventures, such as 2 recently funded grants at Sandia and Highland High Schools for their graphic design and t-shirt printing businesses. This involves special education classes, senates, clubs, marching bands, and athletes. This is the opportunity that's being provided to these students. They're learning how to run a successful business, from placing orders, inventory, budgeting, delivering the final product, and making money. These programs teach students the skills that will prepare them for life. Thank you, Wells Fargo. Community members and school clubs, staff, and sports are buying their products, and I wanted to show you real quick. One school is actually creating an apparel store. So I wanted to show you one of the t-shirts so that you could witness that the foundation actually purchased from one of these groups. And we are providing them to all of our grantees, those who win grants or are awarded grants within the schools. And the Graphic Design Club designed the logo and also designed. They also had a t-shirt press, so each kid printed, Lauren, how many? 1,200 t-shirts. They had to do this during their lunch hours, and they were very proud of this. And they also made these decals, which you will find on school school campuses. If they won an award from the foundation, this is what you're gonna see. So thank you, Wells Fargo. I can't wait to show you in person these students at work. APS has truly benefited from the generosity of Wells Fargo. They hold a special role in the continued success of our teachers, our schools, and our students. Let me quote Wells Fargo. "We share the belief that supporting education is one of the most important investments we can make in our local community's future. We are proud to help provide opportunities for students to be successful." Thank you, Wells Fargo, for a strong belief in the APS education and having such an impact on thousands of students, our teachers, and schools. We are so grateful to have you as a part of the APS community. Please join me in recognizing and thanking Wells Fargo Vice President Joe Trimble, who's unable to make it tonight, and he's also the treasurer of the foundation board, Debbie Randall, Pat Nye, and Mike English. Please join me at the podium.
So good evening. My name is Debbie Randall. As she said, I'm the Vice President of Community Affairs for Wells Fargo. I joined the bank about 4 months ago and had the privilege of stepping into working with a team who has continuously served this community. And one of the first privileges I had was to work with some of our colleagues and other team members and identify who we wanted to continue funding. And so it's our privilege tonight to present this check in the amount of $15,000 to the APS Foundation. Thank you for your work.
And I want to thank you. I'm a product of APS, and thank you to all the educators and board service that you do.
Thank you. Go Raven. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thanks for serving. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. You bet. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go with that. So did I. Nice hanging out with you. It's a small world. It is a small world. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Generosity. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So that concludes our recognitions tonight, and congratulations again to everyone. We're going to step now into a public forum. So whether you are here with a request for the Board of Education to consider, provide information, or just see how the Board of Education operates, we want you to know that you're welcome. The Board of Education has established rules for expected civil behavior during the meeting and public forum. Upon signing in to speak tonight, you received a signature form and copy of the procedural directive, which outline those rules for expected behavior. The presiding officer will enforce these rules as appropriate throughout the meeting. The Open Meetings Act, NMSA 1978, Chapter 10, Article 15, requires that agendas contain a list of specific items to be discussed or acted on at meetings. Due to these rules, public forum is not a dialogue with board members. Public forum is an opportunity for the Board of Education to listen to you and hear your comments. Tonight, there are 6 speakers, and to accommodate speakers, each speaker has 2 minutes for comments within the 45-minute public forum. The time remaining to speak will appear on the screen in front of you. At the end of the time given, please complete your sentence quickly so that other speakers will have a chance to speak. You may not yield your unused time to another speaker. You are always welcome to submit additional comments to the board in writing if you're unable to convey your message or you're not able to speak within the 45-minute public forum. Board of Education encourages you to stay for the entirety of the meeting so you may listen to the board member comments before we adjourn. It's only at this time may your concerns be addressed at the discretion of each board member. So our first speaker is Franklin Shargle.
Good evening, Board President Piercy, members of the school board, and Superintendent Reedy. My name is Franklin Shargell. I am a proud Albuquerque resident for the past 19 years. I have just finished the writing of my 13th book entitled Who Will Teach the Children? Recruiting, Retaining, and Refreshing Highly Effective Educators. Albuquerque, like much of the state and the country, is experiencing an intellectual educational exodus. The book addresses the difficulty of getting highly qualified, licensed, highly effective educators in fields such as science, math, English as a second language, and special educators in our classrooms. We need to recruit, retain, and refresh classroom teachers. We cannot reach the heights required by STEM unless we have fully licensed professionals in our classes and in our front offices. In a report entitled Churn, the High Cost of Principal Turnover by the School Leaders Network, the state of New Mexico is targeted as having among the lowest average years of a principal leading the same school, from 2.7 to 3.5 years. The cost of replacing that principal is typically $75,000 in 2014 figures. Imagine how much we could, as a system, improve if we retained those principals. If we look into highly performing cities, we will find highly effective schools. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Do I get a free book if I answer all your questions here?
All right. Our next speaker is Verlin Coker.
Hi, my name is Verlin Coker. I'm sure you all know me by now. I have a few additional clarifications and some feedback as well. First of all, I wish to recite to you the last two lines of the first time that I spoke here. With APS's history of statistical dishonesty and administrative ineptitude, I cannot ask that this gets fixed overnight. I can only ask that we do better. So I really want you to understand that from day one, I understand that this cannot be solved instantly. And I do find it very insulting that you keep acting as if I don't know that. There are constant comments of, this won't be solved overnight, this won't be solved instantly, and I do find it quite insulting. A clarification as well, last time I had mentioned the issues with the calendar, and the issues were more so with the presentation and the optics you guys had during the approval process. You had asked if there was anything changed from last time to this time, and they said that there was none, and you all were okay with that, not even so much as acknowledgement of any efforts to put in the public culture days, and then subsequently acted as if I had some opportunity to understand that these changes were made. And again, it sort of is belittling that, you get these responses where I only have the 2 minutes. As well, there's an omission of the IEP accusation that I had made, that they are fraudulent, that has been omitted in the last meetings, or in the minutes for the last meeting, which points to either you don't understand that they are fraudulent, or you know it's a problem and don't really want to admit it. Either way, it is very concerning. In response to the most recent public forum that you gave to the Native American community, it was quite frankly an insult. The time allotted that you gave was only 60 minutes, which was less than the time that we took for the previous board meetings. If it wasn't enough time then, it certainly isn't enough time now. As well, there wasn't an actual dialogue with the community, especially not with you guys as you were all in the audience. Even so, it was at a very prohibitive location that I could not get to through public transportation. That is a huge issue. As well, there was no moderation. There was a woman there who spoke for things completely outside of the realm of what it was for, and there was no moderation for it, and that has caused for great concern because it shows a lack of protection for our speech, especially in these forums. There was no official updates for any questions I had asked the Associate Superintendent for Education, Inclusion, Innovation, and I can't remember the last one. And I was informed that there would be these updates, but there was no such thing. Okay. As well, there's an issue with the Indian Pueblo Culture Center. You guys had stated that you were talking with them, but as far as I understand, they're not necessarily allowed to even talk about policy or change policies. I spoke to their Education Department. They had said they received no contact for you for the past 3 months, showing that it was either a lie or talking to someone who has no basis in education.
Thank you, Mr. Coker.
I am not done, and you afford me the same silence you showed that white race, so keep that in mind. As well, there's a lot in here that in my email sent about almost a month ago for the changes that you guys are implementing. And again, I received no update. I need specifics on what you're doing with NMPED, especially now with transition. There needs to be some sort of effort to change the standards. The standards themselves don't know not even a single reference of the word genocide, meaning that there is no admittance of the Native American genocide in your social studies requirements. And another thing is that you continue to offer ethnic studies as a elective, where the argument for a lot of, say, families of education and a lot of the efforts done by UNM in order to integrate ethnic studies, but are asking it to be mandatory. And again, I've seen no updates from that.
Mr. Coker, would you be able to send us these things in writing, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
I plan to do that after this. But other than that, just please know that these things are important, and I really wish that you guys would respect me in some sort of way.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Matthew Suarez.
Good evening, Dr. Piercy, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy. My name is Matthew Suarez. I'm represented with the Carpenters Union here in New Mexico. As we all know, the bond election did not go as we had hoped, but regardless, the members of Carpenters Local 1319 stand ready to assist APS with future bond elections, district needs, and of course, our continued efforts in training the next generation of tradesmen and women. Though the bond was defeated, our members and staff phone banked our over 400 members in the Albuquerque area to explain the importance of its passage over the last several weeks. We stand ready to assist again in future needs. Labor stands with this district, its board members, educators, and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Janet Sayers.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Reedy. And like 40,000 people who did vote in favor of the tax increase, I was very saddened and disappointed by the results. I was especially distressed. I felt that our local newspaper took it upon themselves to place letters to the editor and other correspondence and headlines in such a way to call attention to the negative side rather than the positive side. And I think other media outlets did the same thing. There has been criticism that this publication didn't explain things. So if you turn to the inside page, like one of the big complaints I heard was, how much will it increase my taxes on my house? The very first thing it says, and you find your house, and then it shows you how much more you'll pay. I mean, I'm not sure how much more clear that could be. I would have paid $100 because my tax to APS was $500 out of $2,000 a year. I would have paid another $100, which I would have been happy to pay, because I also noticed that the middle school I went to, McKinley, which opened in 1954, and much of McKinley is the exact same structure from when I was there in 1960. So it's off the table, won't be finished. Arroyo del Oso, which feeds into Del Norte, and you all know my heart is with the Del Norte cluster, and that won't be finished. But I just, in conclusion, I wanted to compliment Superintendent Reedy for her very calm, dignified response about, we're disappointed, but we respect the democratic process and the will of the electorate. I thought, I'm not sure I could have been so pleasant, but compliments to your response.
Thank you.
Which is why mine wasn't in there.
Our next speaker is Tony Watkins. I might have added an S, right? It's Tony Watkin?
Watkins. Yeah,
Watkins? Okay,
right.
I said it right.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm with Family Center for Education, and just a few points. Back in October 2017, I hand-delivered a protocol from the Southern Poverty Law Center on addressing race and hate actions in schools. And that was in the aftermath of the KKK hoodie incident at Volcano Vista High School, and I'm concerned that maybe that protocol didn't make it down to the schools, because a number of those ideas in that protocol could have been very useful in what happened at Cibola High School. So I'm curious to see that go actually get into the school hands of school people. Secondly, I want to support the ideas of Pequimura Alagon about extending the time for public speaking especially for political refugee students and any student that's experienced mistreatment in our school, that they ought to have the time during public comment to actually tell their whole story. And also I want to support Board Member Peterson's idea to move the reaction of the board to public comment to directly after public comment, so people don't have to wait to the end of the meeting. Thirdly, like Mr. Coker, I was at the community forum at Paradise Hills, and just some ideas around that. One, it seems like it'd be good to form a circle and have someone with a mic in the middle of the circle and just pass the mic around, so it could actually be a dialogue. Because even though it was kind of different than a board meeting, it was still one-way communication back and forth. And what we really need for healing is a conversation. And lastly, I want to echo the sentiments of many people at the forum that we not do cultural competency training, but we do anti-racism training. And I know many of you are familiar with the anti-racism training. Some of you have been through the People's Institute training from nationally, and dozens of us have been directly impacted by that training and are actually doing executing some of those principles in our daily practice. So there's a big cadre of local people who've been through that training that can help if you rely on us to help. So thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Kara, and I wish I could read your last name. Maybe you could tell me what it is, Kara.
Sure, it's Kara Langto.
Langto, okay, thank you.
Super. So I'm from the group called Open, and we are a group of parents who are dedicated to making change throughout New Mexico for our children who have disabilities. So we're talking special ed here. Our children are a marginalized group. They come in many colors and ethnicities from many different types of families. Many are nonverbal. Often their parents are extremely busy caring for them, plus other children, the financial, marital stress that families go through who have children with special needs. We appreciate the 3 board members who attended our recent screening of The Kids We Lose, and we hope to show it again. We do feel the condition of special education within New Mexico, let alone New Mexico's rating in our national rating, deserves and needs more discussion, more than the 1 to 2 minutes allotted to parents who are able to leave work to be here in time to sign up, and also to be able to stay until the end of the meeting to hear the results of what you would like to say. So I'm not one of those parents that can stay. But we do again invite each and every one of you to our Thursday night, every Thursday night, 6:30 p.m. at the Law Board on Jefferson and Masthead, where we've developed 22 systemic issues apparent in this district. We're researching it. We are looking for a change and putting together projects to do this. We would like to see all school staff held accountable for abuse, as in the recent Florida media coverage, so that we can feel our children are safe. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that concludes our public forum.
Thank you. We'll go on to the superintendent's report. I noticed our superintendent is down here.
I'm sitting here.
She kind of wanted to say hello to you guys instead of having her back to you, and felt like that'd be a little better way to communicate. And so I appreciate her being here. So go ahead, Raquel.
Thank you. Thank you, President Piercy, board members, community members, and staff. I want to start with a word about our loss of the special election last night. An election is a very complex and at the same time very simple process that we all embrace, respect, and honor as part of the democratic fabric of our country. Our voters have spoken, and we acknowledge their decision. I greatly appreciate the efforts of all who supported the district, and I'm thankful that we never wavered from the fact that this was about our children. We can be proud of that, and we are proud of that, Because when you come right down to it, APS is Albuquerque and Albuquerque is APS, and we are all in this together. Am I disappointed with the results? Of course I am. I worry that this puts in jeopardy many of the plans for student safety, school repair, and technology refresh that were already in motion. I know that very many important school buildings and facility projects will not come to fruition. And so just as any good teacher would do to improve a lesson plan, we are working to reassess, review, adjust, and revamp. For now, all SB 9 accounts are frozen and or put on hold until the high priority list of district needs is reanalyzed and updated. I'm hopeful that we'll have a report for you at the Capital Outlay Property and Technology Committee meeting on Monday, keeping my fingers crossed about that. And the work of learning and teaching, what I want to stress is that the work of learning and teaching continues at our schools. It has never stopped and it never will. It is our most noble responsibility, and we take that very, very seriously. So I'd like to talk about some very positive things are happening in high schools as they create new innovative ways to work with community partners and talk with students about their futures. For instance, students and parents from every part of the city recently participated in Job Club that was hosted in partnership with Workforce Solutions. I was so impressed with Job Club and the energy at the convention center as student job seekers and potential employers got together. And the best way to describe this atmosphere would be to use the word joyous. It was fantastic, such energy in that room, in that huge building. In addition, Rio Grande High School was chosen by the ACER Foundation to bring in speakers from Cool Speak. Cool Speak is a youth engagement company that works to keep students inspired, parents involved, and teachers engaged. Cool Speak spoke with students about the importance of following your dreams and continuing your education. The All-School Assembly was sponsored in partnership with the National Hispanic Leadership Institute. APS, in partnership with Junior Achievement and Mission Graduate, hosted a job shadowing day to expose students to career possibilities that they may not have previously considered. 29 companies are hosting more than 900 students from Albuquerque as part of the Groundhog Job Shadow Week this week. All of our Avid high school classes are participating in this event. Each student will spend a day with an organization learning about operations and staffing possibilities, as well as participating in interactive activities and discussions. This is the first year APS City Center has been one of the host sites for the event. On Monday, 55 Avid students from Manzano High School and Highland High School came to City Center and visited with staff at the APS Foundation, Curriculum and Instruction Department, Counseling, Equity and Engagement, Nursing, Coordinated School Health, Student Health and Life Skills, the Employee Assistance Program, and even visited with the superintendent in her office. It was really fantastic. It was a delight to be part of the process and share some of the behind-the-scenes activities and career opportunities with the students. Cibola High School held its first Safe Teen Assembly this week. The Safe Teen Assembly spread the word to students and staff about the fact that cultural discrimination, bullying, harassment, and chronic meanness would not be tolerated. The message included practical strategies the students could use to safely report and stand up for each other. Moreover, a group of students from diverse backgrounds planned together and delivered a message about the power of kindness and the impact that we can have on each other's lives if we pay attention, are respectful, and if we are advocates, each in our own ways. This is a powerful and empowering lesson for everyone to hear and reflect upon. The students were very engaged and walked away with keen awareness of how the simplest of thoughtful interactions can make a world of difference for individuals. The assembly was impactful in multiple ways. This concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Reedy. We'll go on to special issues. We have a presentation of the partnership between the APS Communications Office and KNW to add a new digital content platform to the district's outreach repertoire. It's a discussion item, and Monica Armenta is Executive Director of Communications, and I suppose Michael Brasher and other
special guests.
Yeah.
Dr. President Piercy, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy, members of the audience. Michael Brasher, the General Manager of KNW, is going to join me in the introduction of this. We seem to all feel this perhaps today just as strongly as we do every other day, but maybe the spotlight's here a little stronger today, and that is that there seems to be one sentiment that's universal in our community, and that is that more people would like to hear more positive stories to help flesh out the actual reality of Albuquerque Public Schools, and we absolutely agree. The APS Communications Department, in partnership with the district's radio station, KANW FM, next week on February 12th, if you want to put that in your calendars, will add a new digital content platform to the district's outreach efforts. It'll be a monthly broadcast hosted by a captivating storyteller who is a relatable APS expert. Now, the APS Office of Communications has discussed having a podcast for a couple of years now. As you may or may not be aware, podcasts are the fastest growing communication venue out there. They're convenient. Community doesn't have to show up to a public meeting. You can listen to a podcast and boost your intelligence or information quota by simply just sitting there. They go where you go. And we found this to be a really attractive model for the clients that we serve, mostly our students, our parents, but the rest of the community. So recently, retired Grant Middle School teacher and band director Mark Goodrum approached us with the proposal to start an APS podcast, and from there we went to the superintendent, the cabinet. Of course, Brenda Yeager helped us, and here we are just a couple of months later. Oh yeah, you did.
Thank you very much. Mr. President and board members, thank you. Just a brief word about Mark. Mark is a respected educator. He spent 33 years in the Albuquerque Public Schools. His wife is an APS teacher assistant, and their two sons are Sandia High School graduates. So Mark brings a lot to the table in terms of the program and lending his teacher voice to our podcast. Before I introduce Mark, I'd like to play a short clip of that podcast, give you a chance to hear what the podcast is all about.
Hello, and welcome to our first episode of the APS Open Book Podcast. My name is Mark Goodrum, and we are so excited that you have taken the time to listen to our podcast. You might be asking yourself, who is this guy, and why should I care what he has to say about Albuquerque Public Schools? Thanks for asking. I was a teacher for 33 years and now retired from APS. My wife and I are parents of two young men that graduated from Sandia High School. I am proud of the students, teachers, and staff of Albuquerque Public Schools. I felt it was important that the accomplishments of the schools, and particularly the students, should be showcased to the Albuquerque community. That being said, my hope is that this podcast will become a tool used between the community and the district to help solve issues. In other words, the way problems are solved is by dialogue. I took the idea of a podcast to district administrators, and here we are. With the support of the district, I hope to use my expertise as an educator and that of many others to pull back the curtains on school district operations and give people a real-time view of our 143 schools, 83,000 students, and 1,400 plus employees. The possibilities are endless. So you probably think it would be a challenge to decide on our first topic, but it wasn't. Public education is all about students, so it makes sense to dedicate our first episode to the difficult topic of teen suicide, especially youth suicide detection and prevention. I think you will be rattled to learn just how often students contemplate suicide and relieved to know something is being done about this. Our guests today are Victoria Walreed, District Crisis Resource Counselor for Albuquerque Public Schools, and Nancy Wiggins, Special Ed Teacher at Grant Middle School, and Nick Estrada, a Senior at Volcano Vista High School. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We sure do appreciate it.
Nice.
So the podcast gives us an opportunity to talk about not just life's problems and frustrations, but to explore a better understanding of the school system and our natural and our social environment. So we're pleased to have Mark as part of the podcast. And so, Mr. President, with your permission, we'd like to invite Mr. Goodrum to come and speak to you. Mark, come on up. Thank you.
Good evening. Well, wow, with all that, I hope I don't disappoint. First of all, I feel I'm going back in time a little bit. I started in '84 at Manzano High School as the assistant band director, and Manzano has a deep place in my heart, along with Harrison Middle School. I started down there for 5 years, and I just loved that part of our life. We were young, just moving from Louisiana, my wife and I, in our 20s, and just starting our career. I'm originally from Boston and went to school in Louisiana at Grambling State University, and that's where I went. I married up with my wife there. I also want to, what I was experiencing sitting down and watching the educators come up here and the open forum of the speakers and the wonderful young people that came up, that's what I hope that we can bring together on this podcast. It is going to be challenging because it's only once a month, and there's a whirlwind of topics. But how many of you listen to a podcast? Okay, may I ask what you may listen to?
I'm a podcast junkie, so I've
Oh,
got The Daily, Pod Save America, The Moth,
I haven't heard that one.
Pantsuit Nation.
Okay.
I've got them all. I've got them all on my.
Yeah,
I listen to Well Women.
okay. Very good.
Fresh Air.
Whiskeys Are
Fresh
Us.
Air.
The Daily.
We get a countdown.
Anybody out there that listens to podcasts
Yeah, I do that too then.
at all?
Studio
Few.
360
Yeah, I do.
Oh, yeah, all the K&W ones.
Well, as you can
on the
see,
media.
yeah, I'm sorry. As you can see, it's out there and people are listening. And the great thing about it, like Monica said, was that you can do that while you're driving and cooking and so forth. I got this idea at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm retired and won't go into my health issues, but I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I said, wow, this would be great. Monica came out to my TV production class at Grant Middle School years ago. I really didn't think she would remember me, and I emailed her and she said, come on in, yada, 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 and here we are. I really need to say thank you to Michael and Kevin and KANW for their expertise and professionalism in getting this thing. This was not what I expected. Believe me, when I retired, I didn't expect to be standing in front of you all or doing this podcast. But I really think it could be, and I think it was the first episode, a very good tool to reach out to the community. And let me close by this. I just think that I'm married. I think there are a lot of people that are in relationships here and have some type of relationship. And we all know in a relationship, it will not work if we don't have communication. And that communication, you know, sometimes my wife and I argue, and a lot of times it's great. And so my point is that communication with this podcast, we would like to have two-way communication dialogue back as well. Many topics coming up in the future. So with that, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, let me open it up to the board for questions. Anybody?
I have a question.
Sure.
How long is the podcast?
Good question. We're averaging around 30 minutes right now.
And how many topics will you have
Oh, my Lord.
in that 30 minutes?
I see. One topic.
Just one topic, okay.
Yes. When we did this last one, and I listened to the episodes, I just thought it was a really good time span. If you think about it this way, most of the time, if you're driving around Albuquerque, you can get to point A to B within 30 minutes, if you stay off the highway or what have you. So you can listen in your car, or if you're cooking, you know, and things like that.
Board Member Armijo, President Piercy, members of the board, that we did a lot of research before we went into this, and about the average time is about 20 minutes. But this topic required just a little bit more, and how the process is working is that Mark is meeting with the communications team to go over topics. We have been very clear that a podcast is not a public affairs show, so that he's doing a lot of research behind the scenes. He's telling us who he wants to talk to, what information he'd like. He's gathering that and then bringing the story ideas back to us. We actually had a rehearsal before we recorded the first episode, because we wanted everyone to understand that what we're trying to create here is a conversation. What APS lacks, I think I'm kind of tired of saying this, everybody's heard me, we live in a state where we have no professional sports, no industry, no real money, millionaires but not a single billionaire. Until that changes, the focus is always going to be on crime and government, because government's the only industry. So one of the only tools we have to tell a story is to bring our folks out. And someone who's been in the classroom for 33 years and has heard so much and has his own opinions coming in is better to be able to guide us to what should be discussed out there. So we're sort of following Mark's ideas, exploring what we think people would like to know more about, and we're being very candid. One of the things you're going to hear in this podcast that we don't talk about a lot because it's difficult to broach is the district handles, Dr. Muir can tell you this, the district handles 1,800 threat assessments a year. To some people that's alarming. What you'll hear in that podcast is that's a good thing. That's 1,800 kids we've reached and possibly provided services for. So it's a whole production behind the scenes. The idea is to focus on one topic per month. And this is also a direct response to some of what we heard from the board. The superintendent has asked a few of us to put some effort into better partnerships with KANW and KNME. We'd love to see something like this with our partnership with KNME as well.
Good job. Thank you.
Well, and for my part, I'd like to say we appreciate the opportunity to work with you all. I want to thank Kevin Otero from the radio station, who worked pretty hard to put this together and has a real passion for the podcast. So we appreciate his work, and Monica and Ms. Shager, thank you very much.
Are there other questions from the board? Yes, Board Member Muller-Aragon.
So when you're deciding upon the topics, Mr. Brasher, then who's going to have the final say on the topic of the month?
From our standpoint, we'll probably be the distribution system, and the content will be determined by Ms. Armenta and Mark.
Board Member Miletico and President Pearson, member of the board, there isn't anything that happens really, if you've been in APS at the district level, you know there's very little that happens without a lot of collaboration. So the conversations between Mark Goodrum, my office, the superintendent, and the offices involved, there has to be enough content and there has to be enough information of interest. People are really not going to tune in to learn about the district. They're going to tune in to learn about the things that they've never heard before. And that's what we're going for. So it's a collaboration.
Thank you.
Other comments? Board Member Peterson?
So how do we turn this into a dialogue? I mean, I see the potential for getting a lot of issues. I mean, just tonight in public forum, there are any number of issues that came up that certainly need to be addressed. And so we keep finding ways, and I appreciate the pieces that are coming together. I think there need to be more with the real long-range plan of how we get information out to the community. But we're better at that, even though we need to get better. We're better at that than figuring out how to get the information and the dialogue in. And so how do we use this as a format for real dialogue?
Well, I'll let Mark, I think Mark has a response, and Board Member Peterson, President Pearson, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy. One of the greatest things about the podcast is that it is free. As of February 12th, you can access it off aps.edu. You'll be able to hear it on KANW. You can get the link from KANW. It'll be on iTunes, on YouTube, on every possible platform where podcasts are available. I forget the number of hundreds of millions of people who now listen. So this now becomes a tool. The success of getting it out there is in the promotion, and that's part of what we're doing tonight, part of what we'll roll out in the next couple of weeks. Mark will be talking with local reporters. We'll be sending emails to everyone imaginable, sending them the link, asking them to listen, and then we've already set up an email account for Mark. Mark will get that feedback, and based on some of that feedback, other topics will come. But the discussion and what happens once the dialogue is out there, Mark does have some ideas about.
Absolutely. The two-way communication is so important to make this work. So one thing, as Monica mentioned, was the email that will be out there for the community to give information, social networking through Twitter as well as Facebook and others. That way the community can reach back to us and give us ideas and bring in topics. And, you know, the sky's the limit. Real quick, I'll mention that we'd like to reach to the parent organizations at the schools and get their input and have them submit ideas, comments, and questions through just one-on-one or through digital means as well.
Board Member Garcia.
Thank you. I very much appreciate the initiative that you're taking, and I'm very pleased that KANW is helping to get this launched. My hope is that we'll be able to reach people from around the state, so that the various opportunities that you have through, I don't know what they're called, channels or whatever, ways of communicating to people in rural areas, that these issues will get out. I couldn't help but just thinking over and over again, Mr. Coker's comments this evening are very stimulating in that we really do need to do one on Native American issues and education, which is going to include, as was said, looking at the hard things. Not just what we want people to know about what we're doing well. We have a number of unsolved questions, a number of unsolved issues, and I hope that there may be a way to figure out how we let people know that, yep, we don't know the answer to this just yet, but this is where we intend to go. It's confounding at best, but I don't think that it's something that we need to shy away from. So I appreciate very much your initiative and your leadership, and I look forward to tuning in.
Let me go to the phone and see if Board Member Patterson's still with us. I haven't.
Of course I am.
Okay.
I'm here.
I'm sorry, I haven't really paid attention to you, so I apologize for that. But if do you have some thoughts or questions, Candy?
Yeah, I thank you for the opportunity. It's great to know that we can tell our story. One of the things I wanted to ask is, because there is a dialogue, what kind of protocols do you have in place to monitor conversations if need be? Because I know that, that can be challenging sometimes.
Yeah, good question.
Are there protocols? Yes, sir.
Well, to be honest with you, we haven't gotten there yet. I'm sure that while you were asking the question, if something came my way through email or what have you digitally, I would obviously, send it to Monica and have a conversation about it and try to find a way to proceed that way. But also just try to address whatever the topic may be respectively and have that conversation. Protocols written down right now, we haven't really visited that yet, and I'm glad you brought it up. So I'm sure, it has gone through my mind as we were playing this on, is anytime you deal with the public, you have to know that it's all out there. And so you have to be ready. I worked at AutoZone, and so, many years and also middle school. So my point is that you just have to be ready to address those issues and those questions and comments, take it one step at a time, and have more than one person involved to try to make this come out as cohesively as possible. I don't know if I adequately answered your question, but we're working on it.
All right, thank you.
Can I say one last thing? Sure. I recently bought a new car, and so I go to the dealer, and blah blah blah, and so the salesman comes up, and he's one of my former students, and I said I'm terrible with names, but I remember eyes, and I said, and he said, Mr. G, and I said, oh my God, and he said, Coy. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say his name. So he's all grown up, 4 kids, married, owns a business. Can I say his business? Sure. Bristol's Donuts. I'm going to go get donuts. And
all right, donuts.
And it was, along with seeing everyone here and the students, Manzano and so forth, bottom line, it gives me hope. Mm-hmm. And I've had hope for 33 years. I have to tell you, I loved teaching band for 33 years and fine arts and music in the schools and seeing the kids at Grant, Manzano, Harrison, and all the kids. And so anyway, this is a small tool that I think can help us as a community, Albuquerque, the city, and the district, to have a better relationship. I'll shut up. Thank you.
Any other comments, board member?
He already knows I'm a podcast junkie, so
Yeah.
I'll definitely be listening. I think it's a great opportunity for, and you're right, it's one tool. It is one tool. There's like many that we can employ, and so thank you for stepping up and wanting to do it. I mean, I think it gives us an opportunity to explore that one tool and see how it can help us as we're moving forward.
So let me just follow up just a little bit with the dialogue concept. So you really have a dialogue to some extent when you're doing the podcast. I mean, you have somebody there, you're doing the dialogue, and you're doing that kind of a dialogue. So there's kind of an online dialogue. do you have the opportunity to have people either call in or send an email or something like that to ask a question, that kind of a thing? And then the second part of that would be after the fact, people obviously can send something in and we maybe respond to them in some kind of a, not exactly a dialogue, but, kind of an offline dialogue about the subject itself. Is that the three kind of ways you can do dialogue, or do you got other thoughts about that?
Dr. Piercy, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy, the podcast is produced. So a lot of time and effort goes into actually researching and then sifting through the information to decide what information is going to be most interesting to people. So it's not a live call-in show. I do I sat in on the recording of the rehearsal and the actual show so that if anything was said that shouldn't have, we're always careful with privacy. There are issues sometimes that can be sensitive, so we can catch. And Kevin Otero, as Michael Brasher's mentioned, is fabulous if we need to edit. We did not edit this time. But the whole concept of a podcast is, it's as if someone has dropped you in the middle of a conversation. And if there's feedback later, Mark has an email address, and part of his commitment to the project is to respond to those listeners, either via email or a phone message, and we'll know after the 12th how that goes and what kind of feedback we get and determine from there, how we go about addressing that. And I'm sure Mark would be delighted from time to time if you'd like to invite him back to sort of give you a summary of how it's going.
So it's not live then. You do it on a studio production. Okay, that's good to know. And can you tell me, it's once a month. Is there a specific time and date that you do this? Or you plan to do this? Let's put it that way.
Well, there will be a broadcast, and let me get the time on it. There will be a broadcast, and in fact, the first one is coming up on February the 12th, and it will be carried on the full network of stations. So it'll be on the ones that serve Albuquerque and Grants and Gallup and Santa Rosa and Espanola and Taos and Santa Fe. And
like when?
Throughout the state.
2 in the morning?
So that one broadcast will be I think it's at 6 o'clock in the evening on Tuesday, February the 12th.
Okay.
And then, of course, then they can listen anytime on the podcast, which is probably where they'll have a pretty good listenership. It's available 24 hours a day.
So the idea is basically to be able to listen to it anytime you want to.
That's right.
As opposed to some specific time.
Having to go there.
Because like we always have the ones on KNW that are specific times that we listen to them, And so I wasn't sure exactly how that worked logistically, but yeah, okay. That's good. Yeah, well, Mark, I appreciate you being a band director.
I'm sorry?
I appreciate you being a band director.
Oh, thank you.
My dad was a band director.
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate band directors.
Do you play an instrument?
I do play instruments.
What
I
do you
play
play?
several instruments. I play clarinet, I play piano, and I play guitar.
I have a gig for you.
I love clarinet.
Can I tell you what it is?
Tell me what it is.
I really don't know the protocol here, so forgive me, but
You're okay.
the Rio Rancho Horizon Band.
Uh-huh.
It's for over 50.
I
don't know
qualify.
if you fulfill that requirement or not. We need clarinet players, and that's for anyone here that plays. We need does anyone else
Is this
play
kind of
on
like
the board?
this kind of like a community band?
Yes. Ron Lipka is, I'm one of the directors, Ron Lipka, Albert and Bob Bailey.
You got my email because you can find that. Apparently, anybody can find it. They sometimes don't know it, but you can find it.
You still have your clarinet?
I have Matt's pair of buffets.
Hey, you're ready to go.
So send me an email.
Okay, I will do that.
Send us an invitation to the first performance.
Yeah. Well, they let me perform at the honor choir. They let me in the sense that, my music teachers are really great about doing that. Unfortunately, I will not be able to do that this year. It's on March 2nd, which is a date when my granddaughter is actually performing in Legally Blonde, a performance for high school. And that's a priority for me, so. But
I would be remiss if I did not plug the Albuquerque Concert Band.
yeah, and I know the Albuquerque. In fact, Blakey, Gabriella plays in that. Gabriella Blakey plays in that concert band.
Right,
So
right, that's right.
I'm familiar with that. Yeah. So thank you very much. I appreciate this information, and thank you for KNW. I think it is a great opportunity for us to do a little bit more in the dialogue and a little bit more in the programs, and so that may be a good way to do some of the discussion on the Native American, on the different kinds of things that we are trying to do or that need to be done, in some of those discussions. And I know we have one on KNW on the Native American time. I listen to that actually fairly frequently. That's more of a live program, though, kind of a thing, I think. So, thank you.
Sure, Dr. Piercy and members of the board and the community, the next topic for February, Superintendent Reedy has accepted Mark's invitation to sit down, and he had many questions that I would have never thought of because I wasn't a teacher for 33 years, but he thinks there's great value in the community getting to know the superintendent and asking what it's really like to have that job and those responsibilities every day. So the March episode will be on the APS superintendency.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. We'll go on to our second topic here, which is government affairs update, which is a presentation by one of our government affairs people, Dr. Escobedo, maybe, or Dr. Dahl. Yeah, I'm not sure who's here or who's actually. Maybe you're both here.
You're here.
Oh, they're all here on art. Okay. I thought maybe somebody might still be in Santa Fe, but that's when the backdoor discussions are taking place. You don't get to participate. Okay.
Mr. President, I'm sorry. He was asking if I could do dedications on Saturday, but we might have committee. Right now, Education Committee is planning on meeting on Saturday, and so we have to check on that.
Okay.
Mr. President, members of the committee, Superintendent Reedy, we're just in from Santa Fe a little bit ago, but we wanted to give you just an update on, first of all, on the budget, and then Dr. Dahl will go over some of the priority bills. But we haven't had an opportunity to give you a bird's eye view of where we are in the budget recommendations, and so we hope that this chart will be helpful. And of course, Ms. Coleman and her staff are diving deep into what it means and what we need for sufficiency. So the final unit value was released on the 30th, whenever that was, and that was up to $4,190.85. And so just as a reminder, that's the base of what every unit is, but every student may be worth more than one unit. So that's where we get the average per student cost.
Could you say that number
No, I
again?
was like, he went, yeah.
It's at the very top of the document, but it's $4,190.85. And then we put for you the 2017-18 final unit value. This is one of the earliest times that I can remember of the final unit value being released. Is that correct, Ms. Coleman? It's fairly early? It's fairly... So statutorily, it doesn't have to be until January 31st, so it's on time, I guess.
Can you translate that into the dollar value to us? I mean, it's not just times the number of students, it's the number of units, it's the number of total units we have. So just off the top of your head, how many total units do we have?
Approximately 150,000.
Okay, I can do it really quickly. No. $75 times however many you said, 150,000 units. Yeah. So it's quite a bit.
So we just wanted to kind of set the base there, but then you look at where the governor or the executive recommendation is, and then the LFC recommendation from there. So if you notice, we've all of these things are really in flux because they're tied to either multiple bills or one bill that has multiple changes to it. So for example, Senate Bill 1 and House Bill 5, which are they were identical until there was some amendments in the Senate version, but what that did is increase the at-risk units from 0.130 in the funding formula to 0.250. So you'll notice that there's $113 million being appropriated for that. And then the Public Education Department, or governor's budget, has almost $7 million for an increase in the bilingual multicultural factor. And then you'll notice that the LFC budget takes credit for capping the age at 22 and moving that $6.1 million to the higher education budget to support adult basic education, or students after 22 who want to earn their GED. The small school size adjustment, you'll notice that there's a $14 million credit that is a 3-year phase out that they're proposing. And then they're adding this rural isolation factor to give rural school districts another bump there. Major differences between the funding of extended learning time. So the governor is asking for 183 days to be funded at $18.7 million, where the LFC is recommending 190 days, which would cost, or they're funding it at 62.4. Not that it would cost that. We have to see what it would actually cost. The K-5 plus formula factor is transitions, and again, these are multiple bills that are just outlined in the budget. So what that would do would be to move the K3 plus program to K5 plus. And you can see both of their budgets have that at $119 million. LFC has $25 million for instructional materials. The governor's budget has it also, but they have it in below the line funding at $29 million. There is a recommendation to increase the contribution to ERB. The governor's asking for an increase of 0.5%, and then LFC's looking at 1%, and that's the employer's contribution. And then on the second page, you'll notice some funding for insurance fixed costs. There is a bill that would prohibit public school personnel from earning less than $12 an hour, and that is being funded at $5.95 million. So then you get into the whole compensation that everyone has been talking about. So teacher compensation, the governor is recommending a 6% increase, where LFC is recommending a 5.5%. Principals, looking at a 6% increase for principals, and then 7.5% in the LFC budget. Other school personnel, the governor is asking for 6% across the board, where Legislative Finance Committee's recommending 4%. And then you can see the differences between the proposed minimum salaries from Tier 1. The governor's asking for $41,000 to be the minimum for Tier 1, and LFC's recommending $40,000. And then for Tier 2 and Tier 3, they're at the same at $50,000 and $60,000. And then setting a minimum principal salary of $60,000 across the state. So you'll notice other funding that we watch, transportation, this public pre-K fund to really think about how do we move towards universal pre-K, and the 4 and 5-year-old or the 4-year-old program, and then again that instructional materials, the one-time funding. The reason this hasn't moved, quite frankly, is that there will be a new revenue estimate coming out next week, no later than Friday. So from there, they will look to see what actual revenue is coming in. As you've noticed, gas prices have dropped, but we're 3 or 6 to 9 months behind that drop when we're actually going to see the revenues drop. So we'll have to wait on that revenue estimate, but over the past few years that has learned to be a reality check that there isn't that much money available. So that's why these things haven't moved forward properly. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Dahl, unless you have any questions on the budget, if you want to take them separately.
Yeah, let's probably take them separately. Any comments, just briefly from the board? Yes, Barbara?
Yeah. My big concern, I mean, one of the things that I think we should be really proud of in APS is that we've always guaranteed that SLPs, nurses, all the certified staff that are not on the teacher list have always received the same raise and the same salary schedule. And I'm always concerned that the legislators don't understand that there's a team that makes schools work. So that's number one. Is there conversation going on. I mean, we can't hire SLPs. We can't attract OTs. We've got to be compensating them equitably with teachers. So that's the first concern. And then the other, when it comes to salary, is, does anyone realize that 4%, if you're making $12,000 a year as an EA, is really nothing? And to put a lower percentage increase for the lowest paid employees in the district, I mean, we need the legislators to understand that there's a whole community of people that work in the districts. And so what conversation is going on?
So, Mr. President and Mrs. Peterson, this exact conversation was happening in House Appropriations. Just today, the public education, the Secretary Designate was before the committee reminding them of her budget requests, probably the third or fourth time they've done the presentation. But while we were getting ready to leave, that exact conversation was going on. What is the recommendations for all staff? And the conversation again was pointing out that the executive was recommending 6% basically across the board. So for teachers, principals, and all staff, just 6%, where the LFC was dividing that up. So really talking about what language they were going to put into the budget that would require the school districts to do exactly what your point is, but also leaving local control to do more if there is sufficient dollars to do that. But that, from my understanding, gets really worked through the negotiation process after the funds flow. Or we have a budget, I guess.
We need the money, but it helps if it's also in the budget.
Correct. Yeah, reminding them what is this actually going to cost us out, and Ms. Coleman and her team have been helping us provide that information.
Other comments on this part of it at all? Board Member Malarigan.
So, Dr. Escobedo, then on the school age limit, setting that at 22, so what is going to happen then to those people at MDC that are almost all over the age of 22? I mean, what's going to happen to those if they set that school age limit at 22?
So there's a lot of discussions, and I don't think that they've come down to one solution. There was actually a bill heard today that would have given the Public Education Department the authority to grant a diploma to a student who had met certain factors. So they had, I don't remember the factors, we'll have to check on them. But if they set a cap that the K through 12 or SEG funding cannot flow to any student who is after the age of 22, those programs wouldn't be funded.
Oh, that is horrible.
So the 6.1 million, there's about 6,000, I don't remember the number, but there's adult students across the state that are getting funding. And so I think we only have about 10 students in Albuquerque Public Schools who are in, I think, the Blend Ed or School on Wheels program. But it is a larger hit to a school like Gordon Burnell, other schools who are trying to do adult, support for.
Helpful it is for those, those adults who do receive their high school diploma, that they just don't. They're likely to not reoffend. So this should be concerning to everyone. I think that's something that we need to make sure that we keep our eye on.
So this is still currently in the current version of Senate Bill 1, and then in House Bill 5, the original version of that still has the cap in there. There's been a lot of work to try to figure out how to, like this fix about allowing the Public Education Department to grant the diploma. There are some concerns from legislators who tell us that they don't, there needs to be a clear distinction between an adult being in the same classroom as a 16-year-old. And so I think they're trying to really think thoughtfully about this. And so, we just have to wait to see what actually the solutions are, but we've tried to advocate your position on that issue.
I mean, please, I mean, this one is just really dear to my heart. These are people that are very marginalized and forgotten, and those people that are in MDC and at Gordon Bernal that are really trying really hard to get their diploma. They deserve it. It doesn't matter. They may have dropped out of school and we didn't pay for it, you know, when they were 15 or 16, and we're paying it for them now when they're 59. It doesn't matter when we pay for it. It matters if they get their diploma. So this is just something that's really very, very important to me.
Yes. And several, Mr. President, several board members have expressed that, and we've tried to carry that forward into our many discussions. And again, we're expecting a new rollout of House Bill 5 with a bunch of changes Saturday, I guess. So.
Yeah, everybody's an individual, and you may get your diploma when you're 18, and then you may not get it till you're 65. Doesn't matter. That number is not what matters. It matters having that diploma in your hand.
Yes, and we just did some research from Mrs. Albright, who sent us this great article that actually showed, and we can share it with you, that showed all of the states and their age caps, and Alabama actually just passed an age cap of 17, so they're going the other way. Mm-hmm. So just to give you perspective on how much we've dug into this issue.
I guess a lot of it's going to be in the way that it's implemented as well, because I know with a lot of adult education programs, work with them as part of Workforce Solutions, and they're also meeting the needs of individuals that are maybe incarcerated in different kinds of ways in different cities, and so they do fund those programs. But I also know that they are limited in the amount of funding that they have to do that. So, you know, Board Member Mueller-Aragón is stating, yes, it is important that those individuals, you know, however they get there, right? I would want to make sure that in the implementation that programs like Gordon Bernal or MDC or these programs can actually apply and become an adult ed provider and at least receive those funds and continue to do the pieces that they do. Because I think that's part of what, it's just like one half dozen of the other. I think there probably is currently a blended funding structure right now for them, but you know, how do they put it together so that they're working in partnership with adult ed and they can still do that. When I did meet with the adult ed lead last week, we were talking about this because she was talking about that high school equivalency, and I think also another bill that's talking about expanding how that high school equivalency can also be administered or given, so that we're not just limited by one. But that there's like a structure that makes it possible for there to be a range of how high school equivalency can be given out.
Yes, and Mr. President and Ms. Montoya Cordova really trying to figure out the mechanics of how higher education could actually grant a high school diploma.
Right.
That's what the bill tried to do, but we didn't think it was would be effective. Other questions on the budget?
Other comments?
I do. The only other question I have is that on the instructional materials being below the line, above the line, whatever, is there also, because I was trying to think about conversation in the budgets and what that means around, like, I was also looking at the issue of the increased bilingual and multicultural education program factor there, but then also looking at how instructional materials, if there's conversation around what that's going to look like around some of these multicultural pieces, and is it just factored in as part of that? Because I also know we've never really had enough money to do everything that we need to do for what is required, but how are we doing it? Or what are the conversations around some of those equity issues around how to have other kinds of instructional materials that are around the multicultural issues?
So that's a little bit, Mr. President and Ms. Yolanda Montoya Cordova. This is a little bit of transition to the bills that we've been watching.
Okay.
So it is in the budget, and there is discussion about some of the backfill being below the line, but the recurring to be into the SCG. And so the conversation is that there would be a one-time lump of money to kind of back up what we've been missing, as well as set a new base for recurring funds. In conjunction with that, we know House Bill 45 was passed off the floor. That was Cheryl Stapleton's bill on instructional materials, and I sent a little bit update on that last Friday. So that bill was originally slated for the rocket docket last year because it was aimed at releasing some of the restrictions around instructional materials to free up purchasing in the ways that you described, so that PED could continue to create adoption lists and recommended lists and have teachers come in the summer and vet resources, but that school districts and schools were no longer required to purchase 50% of their money from that list. And so that was there was the striking of private schools as a part of that instructional materials. But as I reported last Friday, since the Moses court case in New Mexico last December, just about a month ago, complicated the conversation around House Bill 45 in terms of it being on the rocket docket. So there was an amendment. It was moved on with an amendment that says, so if it keeps going, we stand to have more freedom around purchasing of instructional materials. The amendment that was brought by Representative Damon Eli had two components. One of them was for PED to certify that once every public school child had a book for every class, then disbursements could go to private schools. And the second one was that it would go to private schools that certified that they were not in violation of hate statutes and didn't discriminate enrollment against any of the criteria in New Mexico state statute on hate crimes. So we'll see what happens with that when it rolls through the Senate.
Okay, anything else?
I just have a follow-up question to
sure.
that real quick, specific to HB 45. So is it just teachers in the PED who can vet the resources and the instructional materials, or will community organizations and partners be able to make recommendations to that list?
So usually those, and this is just speaking from my own experience, but usually those processes help work in conjunction. Just that 50% of the money in current law has to be spent on the PED approved list, and the other 50% could be spent on what local schools and school districts or classrooms decided was important to their curriculum. So the PED process is PED bringing in teachers from all over the state to kind of vet resources. So usually they create a list of options, and then school districts and schools can choose from that list.
Thanks.
Okay. Just very briefly, I agree completely with the age limit discussion. And we'll talk about the HB when we get there.
Okay.
But they got to solve that problem somehow, So Gordon Burnell can still do exactly what they're doing in granting a diploma and doing the things they're doing, however they do it. Whether they do it through adult money or whether they do it whatever, but they should still be able to do it. I can't imagine that's not a cost savings to us to have these inmates actually get a diploma. It's got to be a savings of money, so they've got to be able to do it. They can't just put a blind cap on stuff and say, good luck. And good luck, Alabama. I'm sorry. So anyway, we'll go on to the bills.
So what you have provided for you is a list of things that we have identified as our kind of priority list to be tracking on bills that we think are in a position to have impact on APS more directly than some of the others. So there's about 917 bills that have been introduced, and I think there were another 20 or 30 since we made this chart. And we have about 25% of them that we're tracking in this kind of priority list down below. The two biggest areas to kind of watch in the next week or so, or maybe throughout the whole session, are Senate Bill 1, and its companion will be HB 5, or House Bill 5. We anticipate that to be introduced in committee on Saturday. House Bill 5, as Dr. Escobedo said, is published right now as the original SB 1 without amendments. We provided SB 1 to you at our last update, and after that, there were 3 amendments added to that SB 1 in committee. The mandatory on K-5 plus programs was taken out. So K-5 plus programs were slated to originally be mandatory in those schools by 2022. That was stricken. The cap on charter schools was lifted, and under the extended learning, where it had this is what a teacher contract looks like in an extended contract. This is what it looks like in a K-5 plus contract. They tried to kind of differentiate the salaries and then decided, now we're creating 9 tiers of teacher pay and maybe we shouldn't do that. So they just said, we'll keep it as strike those second and third levels and let districts decide what extra work and how that gets compensated. So we expect House Bill 5 to have some amendments rolled out with it that will maybe vary from SB 1's introduction beyond those amendments. There are 4 bills that were introduced that are not slated to be heard in committees yet around impact aid. So they're House Bill 325 and 326, and their companions are Senate Bill 172 and Senate Bill 170. So right now those are HB 325 matches SB 172 and House Bill 326 matches Senate Bill 170. These are aimed at taking impact aid monies out of the school equalization funding formula so that it flows directly to the districts that are federal impact aid districts, and that credit doesn't get taken out of their SEG distributions. We are working with Ms. Coleman and her department to continue to look at how those bills, once they're introduced, are going to impact APS so that we can offer that information to the sponsors. Let me think. Is there anything on the list other than those? And then, of course, the election law fix is House Bill 407, Senate Bill. I thought it was House, Linda Trujillo, House Bill. House Bill 407 with Linda Trujillo and along with Senator Daniel Ivy Soto. It is a 407-page election fix. So.
Are they fixing on that one the bond tax issue?
I am going to turn this one over to Mr.
So that we can actually have one, for example, in November and still get it on the December tax rolls?
Mr. President, members of the board, the short answer is yes. It's written into House Bill 407. And as you know, Linda Trujillo is a former board member, and she's the sponsor in the House, so she is monitoring that very closely, and we are in direct communication with her.
Okay. Just want to know. That's good. Okay. Comments from the board? I have several myself, but if everybody comments long enough, I won't do it. So, other thoughts from board member Mario?
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
You good?
Yeah. I want to.
You good? Everybody good? Can I do mine?
Yeah.
Are you going to do so? Okay.
Oh, it's just such a refreshing thing to have nice bills. I mean, it's not that there aren't things that we don't have to participate in and work on, but it's really astounding to look and see that the tone is how do we support schools, and it is a nice thing.
Yes, President Piercy, Ms. Peterson, there were 2 on the rocket docket that were on our list, the use of teacher attendance for evaluations and Native American student needs assessment. I think that maybe at least the use of teacher attendance for evaluations kind of set an optimistic tone that we're moving into an era of looking at legislation that's more about support and for schools rather than punishment. So that's a nice tone.
I think you might call that eliminate teacher attendance for evaluation rather than use.
Well, that's the way it's stated, but
I understand.
Yeah, that's the way it's titled.
I understand. Well, let me ask a couple of questions. On HB 77, I looked at that pretty carefully, and I talked with Tammy just a little bit on that. And that's the restriction of administrative expenses. I think that's a bad bill. And it isn't anything to do with the fact that we believe that we're doing way too much in the administrative expenses. But when it has 2,600, I believe, is the category of maintenance and operations, we're in trouble. Because we have no control over utilities and how much that may increase and so forth. And these people got to realize that. So that's a concern. I have no concerns with central administration, to tell you the truth, and I have no concerns with that, but there are some other concerns. Also, the HB 129, so in school security personnel deadly weapons, and I have communicated with Representative Trujillo on this, because what they did is they added some things that were okay to the original law on this, but they should have just eliminated some of the other things in the law, period. We should not have anybody but police officers and security SROs who have the right to have weapons on campus. People 18 and over, or whatever that is, sorry. It's unlawful for you to have guns on our campus. And that ought to be taken out of. I told her, she said, well, that's part of the law. I says, no. If you're rewriting the law, then rewrite it to take those things out of there, you know? Because we don't, you know, we want it to be very carefully controlled as to who has guns on our campus. And those people better be well trained, and our people are for sure. So they should have some real restrictions on who can carry and exactly the training that those people have. And I don't want my teachers, and I don't want people with concealed guns, and I don't want anything else on the campus. Now, you say, how do we enforce that? Well, we can't really, because if somebody has a concealed weapon, we don't know it. But I'll guarantee if something happens and they have it on there, we at least have due process that we can actually say, you know, you don't have the right to have it on campus. And there are restrictions on guns other places, you know, where they cannot carry concealed weapons. So it's not like it can't happen. But I just think they ought to, if they're going to write anything on that bill, then they ought to take it off of there. So that's one of my comments. On HB 152, it was interesting because they actually had a pretty good statement there about requiring CYFD to provide the transportation for foster students. But then they made it kind of optional, to tell you the truth, because then they made the option to say, well, if CYFD doesn't want to do that, then we can negotiate that. I don't understand. It's either a requirement or not, you know? There's no negotiation on this. So, you know, and the problem is that if we have somebody who has a foster child and they live way away from the home school where they are, and they want us to transport them, that's really a hard thing. So they need to consider that when they're doing foster care, and when they're considering the education of the student and where it's best to have the student educated, which is all part of the bill. But, you know, I think that dispute resolution thing is an issue. There are a couple others that I really meant to look at, but I didn't have a chance. Can you tell me anything about the charter school authorization moratorium, the HB 434?
That would prohibit chartering authorities to authorize any new charter schools from, I think the beginning date is June 31st, 2019 through January 1st, 2022.
Any LEAs or any state or LEAs?
It would be any school district or the Public Education Commission.
Okay. And on HB 454, I didn't get a chance to look at that. Can you give me a quick summary of what that's telling me about gifted education requirements?
This is adding a bunch of requirements to gifted education, and really, I think, trying to take a step towards putting it out of special ed, since we are the only state or one of two states that have it in special ed. We have not sent it out for analysis yet, but we will and get that to you.
Okay, I'm just kind of interested, just because we are a little bit of an anomaly state, and we do have quite a few of our gifted parents who are very active.
Yes, and I read the bill and understood about that much and said, "Ooh, we need to watch out for this."
Okay, thank you very much. That's what I have. I appreciate greatly. Other comments?
Came and joined us one day last week, and that was very helpful. She
Lucinda did.
The superintendent.
Oh, the superintendent.
Yes, and so
well,
I think she had a decent time and
she understands
got a lot of stuff done.
Yeah. Well, we do have some people here. Obviously, you know that deal with the gifted program, so they may have some comments too. I don't know. Okay, thank you. Any other, yes?
Yeah,
go ahead.
sorry,
Barbara?
just two things I know because I had talked to several people here and there about a couple of the foster care bills and how it impacts. And so I sort of want to thank Dr. Muir for working, because some of the conversation is relationship with CYFD. And so I know those conversations are going on. And I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that bill is okay. I just was pointing out kind of the question about the transportation, because I know the transportation has come up in our conversations.
And I know we've talked about it a little bit. I continue to be concerned about 245, who controls our facilities.
Oh, well, that's the other one, yeah. I mean, as far as I'm
Charter
concerned, that's
schools,
a no-brainer to say no.
facilities.
Yeah.
And I know that it was worked on to make it better, but we already have the authority if we so choose, but legislating and setting it up where state charters start to claim local education authority districts. Anyway, I think it's got many pitfalls.
Well, and there are also multiple in different places about funding capital for the charters. And we already have that requirement when we do bond and tax levy. So I'm concerned about exactly this overlap of what are they talking about in terms of the capital funding and setting up a separate fund for capital use for charters. And I don't know how that goes. And it's kind of disorganized, you know what I mean? In other words, I can't figure out exactly what's going to overlap what and whether there's going to be, you know, redundant stuff that's going on here in terms of the funding of the capital. You know, we had $106 million that were supposed to go to charters, state and local. And so I don't understand exactly. Now, maybe other districts don't have the bonding capacity or ability to do that, but they've got to be careful with that because, you know, that it could be a redundant kind of a funding thing. And then it was disorganized. You know, I mean, it was some was here and some was there, and they did something at the end, and, you know.
Dr. Piercy, Ms.
Poorly
Peterson,
written.
members of the board, House Bill 245 did pass Senate Education today on a unanimous vote. The amendments were, I think, a big part of that conversation. We did work with district staff and some of the sponsors to give our input, and I think the amendments in the full bill will be posted in the next day or two. Then online, I can send the link out to that so you can review it.
Does it address any of these issues other than the May? I think they put the May in there, which
It addressed the May. It allows local school districts to have prioritization about who they fund based on, you know, a tier of local and state charters in that order. It allows, what else? Do you want to add anything else? Those are the two big parts.
So we could fund local, we could fund the ones we locally authorized before we fund state?
That's correct.
Whole charter thing with the state and local is a mess. I'm sorry, but, you know, they need to decide what they want to do. And as far as I'm concerned, we should have no state authorized charters. We should have locally authorized charters only. We're the only ones that, you know, local people can do the accountability and the performance and that much better than PEC can't do that. You know, they don't have enough staff to do it, so. Okay. Other comments? Yes, Board Member Mulligan, go ahead.
So on House Bill 129, since I am a big Second Amendment proponent, when we're talking about us being a very rural state, what do the rural communities think about House Bill 129, the rural school districts?
President Piercy, Member Mueller-Aragon, I don't know if I know for sure what the input of the rural school districts is on that particular bill. I think the clause that Dr. Piercy is mentioning that's in existing law that wasn't a part of the proposed new legislation was intentionally, when it was written in 1987, as a carve-out for ROTC programs or hunter safety classes that may take place on campuses. We spoke with the sponsor of the bill to to let her know that we also feel like that if her intent of opening that legislation was to close loopholes, to limit the number of people with guns on campuses, to further define the word security so that it couldn't be extrapolated at a school to say, you know, this 5th grade teacher who does lunch duty is on our security team, so then that entitles her to carry a gun. So her intent in opening the legislation, and she got an LESC endorsement from it. She reviewed her bill to them in November and December hearings, and that was the only analysis. So the clause, that carve out for ROTC programs or hunter safety was not really something that she maybe was aware of or realized was another loophole she could continue to close. So I don't think it got a lot of attention for the gun issue in terms of allowing students to have guns on campus. So it was heard in judiciary this afternoon. I'm not sure what happened to that, so it was when we were leaving.
And of course, my concern is also the distance often for law enforcement to get from where they are to a school. So that's also a concern for a lot of the rural school districts as well. So, I mean, we just have to often think about them and these students that may have to have their weapons on campus. The other thing is on the House Bill 152. So I haven't read it. So my question is, when they are deciding about keeping a child in the school that they were in before they became a foster child, so how is it decided what's best for the foster child rather than what's best for the foster parent, notwithstanding transportation, et cetera?
So, Mr. Piercy, Ms. Mueller-Aragon, House Bill 152 is really an attempt to align state law with ESSA guidelines around foster care. And if I misspeak, Dr. Muir is sliding close enough to catch me. So school of origin is a part of ESSA that we wanted, that this bill tries to bring us into more compliance so that in order for a foster care student to stay in their school of origin, you have to have a whole meeting to be able to do that, to determine in the best interest of the student, if it's in their interest or the parent's interest, if it's in the best interest of the student to stay in the school, even though the foster parent lives in a different part of town, then they have to stay there. And ESSA is far more strict than our current New Mexico law. So this one is really just tightening up and lining us in with ESSA. Anything else on that?
And they can't actually go to a different school if that's the best interest of the student.
Yes.
So that's a negotiation.
The determination has to be.
That determination is made at the school level, on the basis of the.
So, President Piercy and Member Mueller-Aragon, I live this every day. So, the Every Student Succeed Act now mirrors the Fostering Connections Act. And Fostering Connections is part of child welfare. And in that act, since 2007, I believe, the School of Origin has always been part of that, but welfare agencies across the nation have ignored it. And so it was tightened up in the Every Student Succeed Act to ensure school stability for students. And so the School of Origin is defined in there. It's defined as part of McKinney-Vento Homeless Act, and it's the same definition. And at all possibilities, we are to try to keep a child in the school of origin if it's in the best interest of the student, not the best interest of the adults around the child. And that's been an ongoing discussion, if I might say battle, that we have every day with child welfare agencies across the nation, because School of Origin is still not a clear part of what's discussed when they put a child into a foster home. And so we still have foster parents being told in New Mexico that if you take this child, we will move their school. And they cannot do that. They legally cannot do that. And so we are now in a lot of discussions with CYFD. House Bill 152 has started a lot of discussions. It may not, it may end up being turned into a memorial so that we can have even deeper discussions about how we move forward. But the best interest determination process is defined, and it has to happen, and it's about the best interest of the child. And we're not going to keep a kid in the school of origin if they're coming from Gallup. But we also, by federal law, have to ensure that any school we put them in can meet the needs of that child. So if they have an IEP, the IEP team actually trumps everything. Can the school that the child's going into meet that IEP of that child? And so there's a lot of educational issues around that, and so that bill was really to try to align what's not currently in state statute to the federal requirements in both Fostering Connections and the Every Student Succeeds Act.
Good. Thank you.
Any other comments at all?
Candy on the phone still?
Oh, Candy, yeah. You should butt in, Candy. Do you have any comments at all?
I don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Candy. Just one last comment on the comment that Board Member Muller-Aragon made in terms of remote police at their site. If we had the capability for them to form a police department, they could not only have somebody on site, they could actually pay for them from federal funds. Not their own funds, from federal funds. So that's a message. Okay? So they could actually have somebody on site who is a SRO, a police officer, a retired police officer, somebody who's actually trained to how to do this, and not have to wait for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever the time frame is to get those people there. So that's something we have tried, not successfully, but I think, again, that's something to be considered. At least give the opportunity for districts that want to do that to actually set their own police department. They don't have to. And that way, rural districts actually would be served by that as well as other districts. So, okay. Well, thank you very much. Keep us updated, and appreciate this update very much. We'll go on to board member comments, and I'll start with board member Aldergun. Is she still around? Husband's still around. Did you lose her? Oh, okay. I'll come back to her. We'll start down here with board member Armijo.
Great, thanks. I'll try and make it quick. Congratulations on our recognitions tonight. They were all really well-deserved. Thank you to Mr. Shargill for sharing information on your new book. And thank you, Vernon, for being here, Mr. Cogger for being here again with us tonight and helping us really have the dialogue around increasing the dialogue. So we appreciate that. To Matthew Suarez, thank you for being here. We thank you and all of the members of the Carpenters Union 1319 for your support during the bond election and every day, united as one. So thank you very much for being here. Janet Sayers, always, for her support and her updates. And if Tony Watkins is still with us, I'd love to get a copy of the Southern Poverty Law Center addressing hate protocol again. So if he's still with us, he can email that to me as well. And Kara from the Open Group, a few of us, we were able to go see the documentary, The Children We Lose, which was incredibly powerful. So if you have an opportunity to watch that documentary, it really takes your breath away. It was incredibly powerful. So thank you for all the work that Open does and Karen with Open as well. Again, thank you for all the folks who were here this evening and for your comments, and thank you for all the work that Dr. Dahl and Dr. Escobedo did on our legislative update. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Montoya Cordova.
I was touched by the presentations that we had. I definitely want to acknowledge the Spirit of New Mexico Award winners, Ms. Pettis and Ms. Torres. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of perseverance to be persistent, especially in our child welfare situations where we have children that are really vulnerable. So I really appreciate the commitment that they made to make sure that those children were safe and that they got directed to the right kind of services and supports. I think, in terms of the comments really around where APS is and how we can be better at a dialogue and really having a conversation and not just presentations so that we can start that process, as Mr. Watkins was saying, the real process of healing is like, how do we sit in a circle? How do we really talk about the pieces? I've had the pleasure and the honor of being able to participate in anti-racism training when I was with an organization, and it wasn't pretty. It was hard. It was difficult, but it was definitely something that has stuck with me for a long time. It's difficult because I think a lot of our institutions and our protocols, our processes are sometimes just what they are. We, as stated in public comment, we're bound by the Open Meetings Act and needing to put these pieces in play, and that doesn't necessarily fit really well culturally with some of the things that we have to do. But I don't know what the resolution is yet. I want to figure that part out so that we can be better at it, so that it doesn't feel like it's this push-pull, or that we're not listening, or that we're being offensive, or that we're being trite in the conversations that we're having, because it's really, I know it's not how I feel. So it's very difficult. I, too, would like to see, again, the Center on Law and Poverty Protocol, what was actually implemented and where we're going with that. I think it's one step. There's like many steps we need to take. I want to also acknowledge the Superintendent Reedy's presentation around the Safe Teen Assembly, having been part of adolescent health and public health. I know that Safe Teen Assemblies are a best practice, and it's definitely a way to get to that first step also that's necessary for putting young people in a place that's a safe way to also have difficult conversations. We have to be able to allow them that opportunity to do it, but we also need to put some structure around it, making sure that that they are safe and that there is a conversation that is led and it's guided in a way that's going to lead to something that's productive and something that's not destructive. So I think that's a good step as well. I appreciate hearing about that. So on to some good stuff too. The job fair was definitely a highlight of my Saturday. That was awesome to go to and see 600 plus students and their families participate in a job fair that was hosted by the city. I thought it was incredible to see the students from some of the high schools that I know are coming from Albuquerque. They were ready. We had students that actually got interviews on the spot and were filling out their applications. And so it's just those small steps and those pieces that I loved seeing the convention center abuzz, because there was also another event for some young people. So there was families just kind of all over the convention center on Saturday, which was a great reminder of just, what a city needs to do so that we can pull together and really put things together and understand that it's families and children that we're serving. And so I saw that partnership on that day, and I was really excited, and I was somewhat inspired by the fact that our city was putting something together like that could be so well attended, and that we opened up that convention center for families that were participating, whether it was in the dance competition or it was in the job fair. So that was good. And then finally, I just want to say, 83,000 students, 14,000 staff members. That's a really daunting task for us. And there are many views, there's opinions, ideas, thoughts, processes, and everyone has a part. The difficulty is making sure that everyone feels involved. And although we didn't win the election, I am also encouraged. I'm a person who, I've been part of public service my entire career, 40 plus years, and I've never been part of an agency that ever has been fully funded, whether it was child welfare, mental health, public health, education, none of them have ever been fully funded. And what I do know is that in those areas that I've always worked, there's always been crisis, there's always been challenge, but what always makes it nice, or what has always made it possible to work in those places, is because the people, like the 14,000 staff members that we have here with APS, or the 83,000 students that come to our schools, and those parents that believe in us, we somehow rise above those challenges and those crises that's before us, and we're going to rise above it. We're going to have to. I don't think we have a choice. So I'm going to remain hopeful. I'm not upset. I'm not going to point fingers. I'm not going to be mad like that. But what I do want to remind everyone is that it's not just the 83,000 students and the 14,000 staff members here too. Because as part of Workforce Solutions, I also know that it's going to be a little bit of a crisis for us around unemployment, because we are definitely going to see a cut in contracts that are going to happen to some of our contractors and our subcontractors. And as the agency that oversees the unemployment side of that and the public works side of it, when that gets cut, we're also going to be seeing it in unemployment wages and unemployment taxes. So I just want to put that all in perspective, because I'm reminded about what that means, that we're all part of this together. And those contractors and those employees, our tradesmen, all of our folks that are working out there that depended on us for that, we're now on hold for them. And we're also on hold for those families. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the phone. Candy, do you have some comments to make?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you, Dr. Piercy. Thank you for your report, Superintendent Reedy. Always appreciate hearing what's going on in the district, but I also thank you for your response to the on the outcome of the mill levy and bond election. Thank you so much for also sending a press release. I truly appreciate you as our leader in this community. One of the things that I wanted us to we have a real star in our midst here with the board. I want to give a big congratulations to Board Member Montoya Cordova. She is now the Deputy Secretary of Workforce Solutions, and that is really something. Thank you.
Thank you, Candy.
You bet you. Yeah, that's really an honor to sit next to you. I'll be there shortly. I want to address a little bit of what was said during the forum. I believe Mr. Watkins has a point here, and I know that as a community member, being a part of Families United for Education, one of the things that we did, and I know that the room in which we had the community forum last week did not lend itself for a circle. But it really brings people together for just making that one change. It makes a difference to have everybody looking at each other, not everybody's back, but actually in a circle. It creates healing. Also having people introduce themselves one by one. It doesn't take much to do that, and then handing the microphone to those who want to speak around the circle. Even if you're not quite prepared, I think it works really well. And I think this is one change that we may want to make, and make sure that the next space that we have, this community forum, that it's big enough so that we can do that. And that's one recommendation, and I truly take that to heart because I've seen it work. And so thank you for that suggestion, Mr. Watkins, as well. And I also, I had an opportunity to attend the ribbon cutting, which was really a lot of fun at El Dorado High School, the CTE ribbon cutting. Wow, that was phenomenal. The commitment by Mr. Sandoval, the principal, the teachers, and the student, you can truly see their commitment there. It is amazing work, really impressive, and thank you, Associate Superintendent Troy Hughes. Wonderful. It was. I really enjoyed that. And the other thing I wanted to say, About the mill levy bond election, I'm glad to see that our community is very involved and that we had 29% of the voters get out there. Although, the outcome is not what we hoped for, but like Board Member Montoya Cordova, I'm also very optimistic that we just rise above it and move forward one step at a time. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we can do this. And I know that we can. And I think we need to do a debriefing on this so that we can come out with a plan. And I know one of the plans, and it should be a priority, is the safety of our schools, the safety of our students, our teachers, and our community. And so I'm looking for a plan that we can work through in addressing this concern. And the other thing I wanted to say, and Megan, you rock. Thank you.
Thank you, Candy. Board Member Garcia.
Yes.
I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're done, Candy?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Garcia.
Thank you. I think many of the things I wanted to say have been said, so I'm not going to say anything else.
Whoa. Should we put a hand up? Board Member Peterson.
Well, in the last couple of days, I've been at 2 different community school council meetings, one at Emerson and one at Hawthorne. And when we talk about how do we create schools where we have real and honest conversation, how do we bring in the community, how do we create the kinds of environment that we need to, I think that the community school councils are real examples of how hard it is to develop that, but how we can go about doing that very intentionally. And so I think there are things that we have in place that we can keep building on and working on. But the other thing, when I was at Hawthorne, and I guess I'm going to sort of break the mold a little bit from the rest of the board because, we've always approached things as one Albuquerque and one school district. And regardless of where projects were, we have always worked together to make sure that those projects went through, that the growth on the west side was addressed. And at Hawthorne this morning, I look and see 8 portables that are probably 50 years old themselves in a building that's around 70 years old. And you look at that environment and you cannot tell me that the message that we give children in schools like Whittier, where brown water is coming out of the water fountain, and Hawthorne in the same situation with crumbling ceilings, you cannot tell me that we can look those children in the eye and tell them that we value them as much as any other child in the district. Now I know that we didn't do, and I'm saying this as we, did not do the job that we should have done to get the information about this bond issue out there, because Albuquerque community has a history of supporting schools. And I think that was one of the things that we sort of took for granted, thinking that that was going to come through and carry the bond. And I think we underestimated the amount of disinformation, the amount of just outright misleading, and we didn't answer it with honest facts. We weren't out there in many of the places that we needed to be to get the word out. We don't even have the money to continue the maintenance on buildings. And for the first time this year, it's what teachers do. It's what school districts do. It's what educators do. We step up and make sure that we keep pain as far away from schools and from children as we possibly can. But we're stretched about as far as we can be stretched. And this year, finally, we start looking at an operational budget from Santa Fe that can start putting back in place the counselors that we need, the social workers that we need, the support personnel, and the kinds of salary increases that our staff deserves. When roofs start crumbling, we're going to have to start making some hard decisions about, do we uphold that or do we patch the roof? Because there won't be money coming out of that mill levy. The pain is going to be real. And once again, the school district will step up and do everything it can to patch it together and to make it work, because that's what educators do. But we faced accusations of dishonesty, of lack of transparency. We heard that over and over again, and we have a job to overcome that. I think that simply saying it's on our website isn't enough, but the fact is that that plan was based on need. And I walk around Whittier, and I walk around Hawthorne, and I walk around La Mesa and Van Buren and Hayes and see the amount of need. And we don't have an answer for it right now. And so we just need the community to understand that we will do everything we can to work, but we're not doing right by our students. And we had a plan that we need to figure out how to explain, how to verify, how to be as open, because we have absolutely nothing to fear. It has been done objectively and based on need. And we have a job to do. And I want to thank the Carpenters and AFT for the work that they did around this. And it wasn't for self-serving needs, it's because it's what our community needs. And I think that we have always, as a district, said, we don't fight over one neighborhood over another. We look at need and try to move forward in the best interest of our community. And that's what it's about.
Thank you, Board Member Peterson. Board Member Muller-Aragon.
Okay. First of all, I wanted to let us all know that Franklin Shargell is really an amazing person, and I think APS should really use his expertise as other states and other countries do. And Tony, I agree with you. We need to listen more and dialogue a lot more than what we do. But most importantly right now, I want to thank everyone who cast their votes in the APS bond mill levy election. Thank you for being informed and knowing that an election was being held. Thank you for exercising your right to vote when so many people didn't. Your vote matters, and the more voters that we do hear from, the better, because then we know more what people are thinking and more what the community wants. Hearing from 30% is always better than hearing from 3%. Getting more people to vote is always a good thing for our state, as many of our county clerks and secretaries of states have said and believe. I am sure you've heard that many people are calling our voters misinformed, uninformed, lacking in knowledge or awareness, uneducated on the ballot questions. Anyone who said this is by definition calling you ignorant. I beg to differ. I don't believe that to be true, as you went out to exercise a right we as Americans have, and that is not ignorant. Punitive comments, calling voters misinformed, is disrespectful and has no place in this building or on this board. The voters have spoken, and I applaud them for being for children, for expecting better accountability, for wanting better management and administration, for wanting better for APS students, as we all do. For prioritizing students over unions, prioritizing students over the board, for prioritizing students over the superintendent, for prioritizing our students over the educational profiteers. Many in the community were called uninformed because they said that this was a 19% increase in overall property taxes, and they were called, for a better word, liars. To set everyone straight and to be transparent, I am not a star mathematician, but I can add, subtract, multiply, divide, and do fractions and percentages. So to calculate a percentage increase, you take the 1045 that we're currently paying, which would have gone to 12.45. So to calculate the increase, you take the new value, subtract the old value, then divide that answer by the old value and multiply by 100 to get the percentage increase. So 12.45 minus 10.45 equals 2. Divided by 10.45 equals 0.19138755998. Times 100 equals 19.14%. If my math is wrong, you can correct me, but I know I was taught very well at Sacred Heart Catholic Church, Catholic School. So I say kudos to all of you who said it would be an overall 19% increase. Good for you. You were paying attention in math class. The community also said that if the mill bond passed, they acknowledged it was going to be under 5% increase in personal property taxes. And we allow for a 3% increase reassessment of our property. So in time, we know that it's going to be more than that as we all who own property see our property taxes go up. But no one said anything about them being misinformed about this increase or challenged their math. So we can't have it both ways. Simple math can't just work for one but not for the other. Our taxpayers, all of you out there and all of you listening, generously fund our district to support our students and our schools. But we did have a big ask, and I wonder why we weren't in touch with reality and the struggles of those living on a fixed income, those living on a disability check, those young people trying to buy their first homes, those seniors living on Social Security that have nowhere to go and want to stay in their own home. Those tenants who can't afford an increase in rent, those small businesses whose profit margins are already so slim. To be so presumptuous to believe that $12 to $15 more a month isn't difficult for those who struggle from paycheck to paycheck displays a sense of ignorance and lack of understanding in how people out there struggle when 60% of our residents rent property, don't own it. Imagine the effect on this group of people. We were placing too hefty of a burden on our residents. When government is reaching into someone's pockets, they first have to ask if they want you in their pockets. And yesterday the people said no. The second question, had this passed, would be from the someone whose pockets you are in. They would be and are right to ask government to be accountable for the money that they work for. What I saw yesterday is voters protecting their money, the money they work hard for, protecting their parents and grandparents living on Social Security, protecting their daughter buying her first home, protecting their brother who lives on a disability check, protecting their tenants from rent increases their landlord knows they cannot afford, protecting their customers from an increase in the price of goods and services. So, no, I am not surprised, as I had my finger on the pulse of the community and saw the writing on the wall when the city pulled out of holding the election alongside ours. Why did they do that? When of the hundreds of people who made their will known said they didn't want their taxes to go up, that they were tired, the GRT having just gone up last year, county taxes having gone up 2 of the last 3 years, Santa Fe talking about an increase in income tax, gasoline tax, vehicle excise tax. They spoke loud and clear that Albuquerqueans have grown weary and tired of ever-increasing taxes and no increase in opportunities. As stated by the New Mexico Business Coalition, voters said that they do not have an appetite for increased taxes. Government can so often be so confident that taxpayers will continue to allow them to write checks on the backs of hardworking New Mexicans, on the backs of property owners and renters. Yesterday, they said no more. We cannot ignore the fact that New Mexico is still a poor state and that perhaps our residents have no more to give. Perhaps they want us to live within our budget. Perhaps they want us to right-size our district to the current enrollment trend, which is in a downward spiral. I want to, though, assure all the parents, all the concerned citizens, and mostly students that we have resources and that everything is going to be okay. There are grants we can apply for. There's money through PSCOC, and remember, APS is still going to get their share of property taxes and will continue to receive the share of property tax collections as we move forward. Property tax distributions to APS are not going away. APS has the resources to do what's right by their students, their buildings. How? We can save 30% on buildings by doing away with Little Bake and Davis. We can save another 1% by doing away with LEED certification. We can sell off property that is too small to build on, or buildings that are at minimum capacity. We can stop adding square footage when our enrollment continues to decline. Thank you, taxpayers, for financing us well, despite the demagoguery you often hear from the profiteers, by those who choose to use children for their own ends. The election seems to be a repudiation of what the community sees APS to be. The talk in the community was 30% of our students don't graduate. Have you talked to those 30% lately? 70% of your students aren't reading at grade level. 80% aren't able to perform math at grade level. They said we need to do better by and for our children. This isn't okay, and no one would say those numbers are okay. I don't, and I don't believe any of us here on the board do. You, APS, they said, are failing our children of color, and why? They think it's because we choose to not be reform-minded, that we choose not to think forward, that we refuse to replicate great programs and great schools. We refuse to do an audit of programs that may not work anymore. We refuse to have an inspector general off APS grounds. We refuse to tell our own success stories because we might offend. An A school can offend an F school. We refuse to truly embrace choice, a real civil rights issue. Talk about limiting choice for our children, many said, our children of color. That they consider racism. As a homegrown New Mexican Hispanic woman, I find this despicable. Choice in what schools your children attend allows parents without the financial means to send their children to a private or secular school. At least they have a chance at a good charter. And shame on us for not closing those charters that are not doing right by our children, or for that matter, any school that's not doing its best for our kids. We are here for all of those children to do what's right by them, by our future. I once asked a few years ago if anyone who works for APS would raise their hand if they were willing to put their job on the line if things weren't going substantially better, and not one person raised their hands. I assume again no one would raise their hand again. But then I wonder, who would risk a $250,000 plus job? I asked Raquel, would you? Or any of the 100,000 plus employees who are here? Or our bond counsel who wrote the questions that seem to have not had everything in it that they needed to have? Like was said at an economic forum meeting, just because something is legal and statutory doesn't mean it's the right thing or ethical thing to do. I will be putting my position as one of 7 who serve as the employer of Superintendent Reedy on the line in 9 months. So I will raise my hand and take responsibility for what happened yesterday. And yes, I will continue to put my job, my position on the line. I don't know who else will.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to question the math because it's not correct. But I am disappointed with the election results. And I do agree that we need to do a better job. We need to do a better job in terms of the description. We need to do a better job with communication. But I just got an email that had 8 points in it of why they voted against the election, and all of them are wrong. All of them are misinformed. All of them make statements that we have in fact said many times that that's not the case. And so some people are misinformed. It doesn't mean that all of them are, but some are.
You can turn the speaker on, but if you had heard her.
So the point being is that we do appreciate the fact that there are more voters. That's important to do. And I'm a little surprised that we only have 30%, because in reality, if everybody got a mail ballot, and that's a problem with the mail-in, but that needs to be worked out. Why weren't there more voters even? But it's better than we had before. And as Superintendent Reedy has politely stated, this is a democratic process, and the people have said this. And that's absolutely correct. So we agree with that. So we need to go back, we need to look at this process, and we need to understand what it is we need to do better. And most certainly, statements on the ballot need to be better. We need to understand that. People need to be able to read the ballot and understand that. But there are a lot of people who are supporting us, and appreciate the unions. I'm sorry, but we don't need to badmouth the unions, because they in fact support us, and we don't need to complain about our kids who go out and campaign for us, because in fact that's something they want to do. It's their schools. They have the right to do that. Just like anybody else, right? Just like anybody else. And if parents want to take them out and want to show them some of the civic ideas, then it's their right to do that. And that information was all paid for by somebody else, paid for by the people that actually support it. So APS didn't do that. There were some nice things that went on. I attended the Convoy of Hope. I think that's a very interesting collaboration of faith-based churches, as well as businesses, as well as community people, in terms of providing goods and services and mental health capabilities and that to all of our community people. And went to the Hispano Roundtable. That was very interesting. I listened to Howie Morales talk a little bit about the education aspects. I'm encouraged by the fact that we're going to address some of these education issues that we have. And the El Dorado CTE celebration was great. I always am interested to see the hands-on experiential learning in our schools, and I think our approach to trying to look at a master plan on that and to involve more of the community members like our carpenters and other folks is very encouraging. They were tearing apart engines there, and I guarantee you those kids were learning a lot. They had a woodworking shop where they had a lot of the more modern equipment there. It's pretty impressive. So I was pleased to be there. I appreciate the comments from the foreign speakers. I think we are trying to make some progress in that. I think if Mr. Coker gets his written information to us, we will give you written information back about what we're trying to do, okay? And make sure that happens. So I think it's a lot easier if we can get that rather than just a verbal version of it, and I think that would help a lot in terms of trying to clarify those terms and the kind of things that you're asking. I think those are important things. Greatly like the KNW partnership. We've been asking for that for a long time. And I think, again, if we can expand that a little bit, maybe we'll get a forum where we can actually have not quite a dialogue there, but real specific topics that we can have a real deep discussion in that podcast about, so that we can actually understand a little bit about from experts and things like that about what's going on and how we're trying to address those issues. So I appreciate board member comments. I appreciate all that, and we need to push forward, and we need to see what we can do, and that's part of the deal. And we need the community with us, and we need to explain to the community what we're doing, and we need to make sure that that is clearly understood, because clearly people did not understand all the things. And just my latest email told me exactly that. So independent of how much we try to say that we have it there and we have it on the website and we've told them this information, if we have people that don't get that somehow, the question is, well, then how do we get that information correctly to those people? And so that's what we need to make sure we do. And I know we'll be working with our partners on that. We'll be working with our staff on that and trying to understand what it is we can do in that regard. So with that, again, I'm going to go to the announcement of the upcoming board meetings. The next board meeting will be held Wednesday, February 20th, 5 o'clock here, and the next special board meeting will be held Monday, February 25th at 7:30 in the DeLeo Martin room. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, people.